Is NASA and SpaceX building a new moon base in a couple years? Well, after nearly 50 years, NASA is finally returning to the moon, and this time they intend to stay. All of this is part of NASA's Artemis program. A manned journey to the moon and a permanent human presence on the lunar surface are the two goals of the Artemis program. The program is named after Artemis, the Greek goddess of the moon who was Apollo's twin sister. It's a way for NASA to express gratitude for the Apollo missions, which were responsible for landing the first man on the moon. The Artemis base camp, which will be built near the moon's south pole, is the program's main attraction. This is part of NASA's plan to establish a human presence on Luna in order to support future manned and robotic deep space missions. NASA's and SpaceX's manned expedition to Mars will benefit greatly from the Artemis base camp. As part of the Artemis program, people will return to the moon for the first time in 2024, some 50 years after the last manned journey to the moon. SpaceX beat out Blue Origin and Dynetics in a proposal to support NASA with the Artemis program. SpaceX was awarded a $2.89 billion contract by NASA to develop and produce a modified version of the Starship for lunar landings. The project's initial goal is to complete 2 flights, an uncrewed demonstration trip and a rudimentary lunar landing. Astronauts will be transported from the Lunar Orbital Gateway to a base camp on the surface by SpaceX. This will be accomplished utilizing the Starship HLS, a lunar lander derivative of SpaceX's Starship rocket. The Human Land System is abbreviated as HLS. The spaceship is SpaceX's flagship rocket, which will lead the push to Mars as part of NASA and SpaceX's aspirations to visit and settle the planet. This modified spacecraft was built with the goal of landing humans on the moon. The lack of heat shields and air brakes is the fundamental difference between the regular Starship design and the Starship HLS. This is owing to the lack of an atmosphere on the moon, which would heat the Starship HLS during landing. The Starship HLS also has a specific landing thruster that will be employed during descent and takeoff from the lunar surface. The plan is for the Starship HLS to launch uncrewed from Earth and reach lunar orbit in 3 days utilizing the Super Heavy rockets. Following that, the spaceship will just sit in orbit, waiting for its astronaut crew. The 4 astronauts will travel from Earth to lunar orbit on NASA's Orion spacecraft. By the way, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to our channel, where we keep you up to date on all the latest news from Elon Musk, Tesla, and SpaceX. It only takes a few seconds to subscribe, and while you're there, if you could leave a like on the video, that would be greatly appreciated. The Starship HLS will be used as a taxi between lunar orbit and the lunar surface. It is planned to transfer astronauts from the orbiting station known as the Lunar Gateway on many flights. The Starship HLS is meant to dock with either the NASA Orion spacecraft or the NASA Lunar Gateway space station in lunar orbit, to pick up passengers before descending to the lunar surface. 2 men will stay on the Lunar Gateway for the first trip, while 2 others will travel down the lunar gravity well on the Starship HLS to the surface. The first lunar surface mission will last a week and will conduct experiments as well as explore the lunar surface. During this trip, they will be using the spaceship HLS as a living space. Surface astronauts will rejoin the remainder of the crew on the Lunar Gateway in orbit after 2 weeks. The Artemis base camp will be built near the moon's south pole, at a region known as the Shackleton crater. The peaks along the crater's rim are exposed to virtually constant sunshine, making Shackleton crater a particularly special place. The inside, on the other hand, is always under shadow. Shackleton crater, which meets NASA's criteria for the optimum base camp location, has also been discovered to have pockets of frozen water. These 2 main traits are the most crucial among the many factors considered by NASA when selecting a specific location. To power the base, the site must have near constant sunshine and be able to withstand considerable temperature changes. It must also provide simple access to locations of complete darkness where water ice can be found. Access to ice will aid the Artemis base camp in achieving its aim of self-sufficiency. The Artemis base camp would be a lunar surface home with enough for 4 crew members. For the base camp, life support is at the top of the priority list. The facility will need electricity, waste disposal, and communications infrastructure, as well as radiation shielding and a landing pad. According to NASA, the landing pad should be at least half a mile or 1 kilometer away from other base camp components such as the shelter or solar panels. It will be at a higher elevation to avoid falling spacecraft from spraying high-speed debris onto equipment. This is significant because, according to their calculations, landing spacecraft thrust may possibly spray hundreds of kilos of surface particles, water, and other gases over several kilometers. According to Ruth and Lewis, a leader on NASA's South Pole Site research and planning team, you want to take advantage of the landforms, such as hills, that can act as barriers to decrease the impact of contamination. So, in our planning, we're looking at distances, altitudes, and slopes. The Artemis base camp will be on the Moon's Earth-facing side, making it easier for engineers to connect with astronauts working on the Moon via radio waves. The Artemis base camp will be supported by 2 mobility systems: a lunar terrain vehicle that will assist astronauts in traversing the lunar surface, and a livable mobility platform that will allow astronauts to go away from the base for up to 40 days. For NASA to properly exploit the Moon base, mobility is a primary concern. The Artemis base camp places a premium on mobility. To explore and develop the Moon, robust mobility systems will be required. The same is true for Mars, making the livable mobility platform a critical component, as we will require a vehicle comparable to this to explore Mars. This excerpt is from a NASA paper detailing their plans for a Moon outpost that was provided to the public. Artemis base camp will eventually feature a hopper, which will be capable of delivering science and technology payloads anywhere over the Moon. The crew at Artemis base camp will operate it, and it will be refueled with locally produced propellant. NASA also intends to build a lunar far-side radio telescope that could be remotely deployed and operated from the Artemis base camp, similar to a backyard radio telescope. Let us know your thoughts on the topic in the comments section below. A quick reminder to subscribe to our channel. There's a link down below for more Tesla news and conjecture. If you want to learn more about Tesla, SpaceX, and Elon Musk, we have 2 more video alternatives for you to watch on the screen. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more weekly news like this.